To
Got it.
make the link. Oh, and I think that's good, that we have a good sign that it's recording now. We'll make the link available sometime very soon then. If for some reason we lose our Zoom connection, which does happen from time to time, you can use the same link to come right back into the program, and it'll just take us a few minutes to get everybody back in. So without any further delay, we wish to open, as we always do, with a prayer for unity. And for that, I'm going to call on one of our hosts, Patty Kubala. Patty, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you,
Great,
Nancy.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Patty. And thanks to all of you once again. And now I will turn this over to Tom Kubala.
Thanks, Nancy, and welcome to everyone this evening. It's a fine night here in Wisconsin, and I know some of you are joining us from different parts of the area. As we usually do, we just do a very brief introduction of what the Baha'is believe, so that if you're not familiar with the Baha'i faith, you'll at least have an overall kind of idea of what the Baha'is believe. So I'll read this. Throughout history, God has sent to humanity a series of divine educators, known as manifestations of God, whose teachings have provided the basis for the advancement of civilization. These manifestations have included Abraham, Krishna, Zoroaster, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Baha'u'llah, the latest of these messengers, explained that the religions of the world come from the same source and are in essence successive chapters of one religion from God. Baha'is believe the crucial need facing humanity is to find a unifying vision of the future of society and of the nature and purpose of life. Such a vision unfolds in the writings of Baha'u'llah. So it is, I have a very distinct and personal connection to the Smiths, both Colette and Dick. Dick is probably my oldest friend, and we met in high school, and we became close friends, and we haven't separated since. They're stuck with me forever. But I'll introduce Colette, as she's going to be the main speaker, although Dick has a role in the presentation. Colette is a widely exhibited, award-winning painter, educator, and juror, creating primarily in soft pastels over watercolor. She has had work published in 3 books and been featured in several publications, including American Artist, Artists Magazine, Pastel Journal, and Pratique des Arts. She is known for her contemporary landscapes that fuse realism and abstraction. A native of Milwaukee, Colette lives with her husband in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. And there's Dick. This is an old photograph from a party that we once all shared together. I hope I'm not embarrassing you two. So why don't you take it from here, Colette? I'll stop sharing.
Gosh, Colette, are you embarrassed?
No, I'm just laughing. That was a good party. That was a long time ago. Thanks, Tom.
Do that.
Oh, so welcome. Thanks to everybody who's here with us tonight. I see dear ones, family, friends from different parts of my life. Ooh, gotta go back.
Gotta go back.
And Dick is working on, okay, there we are. Boy, you did derail me a little, Tom. I was told that tonight, some of you are joining us via your telephone. And if that's the case, you may not be able to see any of the slides, images that we have prepared for you. You'll be able to hear the quotes my husband will be reading, but hopefully you could either switch over to a computer or perhaps watch the recorded version if you want to see the paintings. But really the quotes are the important part anyway. So thanks for coming and joining however you can. I need to also begin with a disclaimer, and that is that there is no Baha'i art. There is nothing official, there is nothing sanctioned or not sanctioned. I am speaking to you tonight as an individual who has been inspired by and is trying to live my life and practice my art in accordance with some of the things that the Baha'i faith has taught me, or that I'm trying to learn, let's put it that way. And in that sense, what I'm sharing with you tonight is just my piece or my version of what I believe is a universal impetus placed within the heart and soul of humans. That impetus being to express the wordless mysteries and experiences that move us throughout the course of our life. I believe an important part of that impetus is to express our understanding, our experience, our ways of worshiping the divine as we recognize it. And while we can never really know what a different culture or a different time or a different people held as their view of the divine or their understanding, we could see it in the artworks, in the edifices, in the images that they have left behind. And I hope that my images will in some way serve to add to that immense a body of experience that humans have created. So again, I'm only speaking for myself. I don't speak for any other artists. I have no authority position. However, I do believe that I've been given a great gift, and that is that there is much specifically written about art in the writings of the Baha'i faith. And you will notice most of what I have chosen to share with you tonight are from Baha'u'llah, who was the prophet founder of the faith and whose name, his title means the glory of God, or Abdul Baha, his son, whose title means the servant of the glory. So if you're wondering about those references, that's where they come from. So without much further introduction, what we will do is we will show you a series of images that have been paired with quotes that my husband will read. These are direct quotes from the Baha'i scripture. And I will say that however these images appear, they have all been my attempts to seek the blessed beauty being one of the titles of Baha'u'llah, to seek that blessed beauty and to reflect it. So Dick, you read that?
Sure. O Son of Man, veiled in my immemorial being and in the ancient eternity of my essence, I knew my love for thee. Therefore I created thee, have engraved on thee mine image, and revealed to thee my beauty.
This quote from Baha'u'llah has always encouraged me because it makes me remember that I am a sacred being and that I have been created with the capacity to recognize God's beauty. And I find that as an artist a great encouragement.
In each and everything, a door of knowledge hath been opened, and within every atom traces of the sun hath been made manifest.
This quote and the next several are on this theme of creation being a pathway to the knowledge of God. And when I discovered these writings in the faith, once again, I was so encouraged to find there was actually a religion that told me the beauty and the mystery and the wonder and the power and the glory and the craziness and everything that I saw around me in nature was designed to educate me. And so I think that is at the heart of my attraction to using nature as the impetus for my work.
Gazing with the eye of God, he will perceive within every atom a door that leadeth him to the stations of absolute certitude. He will discover in all things the mysteries of divine revelation and the evidences of an everlasting manifestation. Or she.
Or she. The most I can say about this quote is that it's my ardent desire that I would be allowed to have at least moments of certitude, or less doubt anyway, on my way to certitude. And that I may, in time, come to understand what is being revealed before me more and more.
Yeah. Within every blade of grass are enshrined the mysteries of an inscrutable wisdom.
I particularly love this quote because I find myself drawn to small, sometimes insignificant patches of nature, a puddle or a little rivulet of a creek, and kind of in the way that the Japanese art of bonsai recognizes a whole forest in a miniaturized tree. I look for that in the blades of grass or in the broken branches or in the mud puddle.
Each and everything, however small, would be to him a revelation, leading him to his beloved, the object of his quest.
It's a lifetime quest.
O people of Baha, the source of crafts, sciences, and arts is the power of reflection. Make ye every effort that out of this ideal mind there may glean forth such pearls of wisdom and utterance as will promote the well-being and harmony of all the kindreds of the earth.
This idea of reflection is something that I spend a lot of time with in my paintings. I often aim my vision down towards the water, as in this image, oftentimes not including the literal sky or a horizon. But I love the way the water reflects. It distorts, it colors, so to speak, our experience, but the whole of creation is there. And in a way, what I like about the idea of the water as a metaphor for the physical world reflecting the spiritual is that it is shaped by the physical forms. So what we conceive of spiritual is limited and colored and shaped by our particular ability to see. by our time, by our place in life, by our experiences. So at the same time that we're limited, it also means that we are unique. And that's something I enjoy about the whole concept of reflection.
All art is a gift of the Holy Spirit. When this light shines through the mind of a musician, it manifests itself in beautiful harmonies. Again, shining through the mind of a poet, it is seen in fine poetry and poetic prose. When the light of the sun of truth inspires the mind of a painter, he produces marvelous pictures. These gifts are fulfilling their highest purpose when showing forth the praise of God.
I have to say, when I came across that the first time in the Baha'i writings, I was so excited to hear that art was important. It wasn't just making pretty pictures. It had a spiritual basis and it had a purpose. And it made me realize that for me, anyway, painting wasn't about expressing myself. It was much more about sharing what glimpses I'd been allowed to see, hopefully for the praise of God and to be of use to other people. And when I came to that understanding, it freed up a lot of my artistic inhibitions and concerns. So this was a very important quote for me.
Look at the world and ponder a while upon it. It unveileth the book of its own self before thine eyes, and revealeth that which the pen of thy Lord, the fashioner, be all informed, hath inscribed therein. It will acquaint thee with that which is within it and upon it, and will give thee such clear explanations as to make thee independent of every eloquent expounder.
I'm glad you like that one, Tom. Tom is also a painter, a very fine watercolorist and an architect. This quote speaks to me of one of the basic tenets of the Baha'i faith, and that is that each of us should investigate truth for ourselves so that we can see with our own eyes, hear with our own ears, and know with our own minds, rather than following tradition blindly or following superstitions that have been unexamined or not examined critically. And so this assurance that the world is offering us our answers, if we take the time to do our own exploration, if we actually do our own research, is how I would put it. And so in many ways, my art is my research.
A painter asked, "Is art a worthy vocation?" Abdu'l-Baha, turning to her impressively, said, "Art is worship."
And as far as I'm concerned, we could actually just stop right there, because the being told that art is worship, okay, I can do that. That standing at my easel and trying with the best of my ability and engaging in this process is a form of prayer. I'm good with that. That's another great comfort.
In accordance with the divine teachings, the acquisition of sciences and the perfection of arts are considered acts of worship. If a man engageth with all his power in the acquisition of a science or in the perfection of an art, it is as if he has been worshiping God in churches and temples. What bounty greater than this, that science should be considered as an act of worship and art as a service to the kingdom of God?
I should really have that just printed up on top of my easel as a reminder of what it is I'm trying to do and of how important it is. And it's not just painters, you know, it's dancers, it's people fashioning tools in a workshop. It's people manufacturing glass bottles to the best of their ability and making them beautiful and fine. You know, it doesn't matter what the object is, if it's of service and you're doing it to the best of your ability. An act of worship and service. Again, this is what I work from.
I rejoice to hear that thou takest pains with thine art. For in this wonderful new age, art is worship. The more thou strivest to perfect it, the closer wilt thou come to God. What bestowal greater than this, that one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord? That is to say, when thy fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if thou wert at prayer in the temple. The spiritual world is like unto the phenomenal world. They are the exact counterpart of each other. Whatever objects appear in this world of existence are the outer pictures of the world of heaven.
Now, I do not pretend to understand this quote. However, it challenges me to try to see the spiritual in the physical. If I'm being told that the physical is a manifestation of the spiritual reality, then in my work, I am trying to get past that scrim, that surface image, to try to get at the reality of what I'm seeing.
It is natural for the heart and spirit to take pleasure and enjoyment in all things that show forth symmetry, harmony, and perfection. For instance, a beautiful house, a well-designed garden, a symmetrical line, a graceful motion, a well-written book, pleasing garments. In fact, all things that have in themselves grace or beauty are pleasing to the heart and spirit.
I love the idea that we're told that we're hardwired to respond to these things, to respond to beauty, to respond to symmetry and good form. It's not an accident that there are things that move us. That's the way we're built, and that's part of the design.
Drops though we be, still do we draw from out thy ocean deeps. Motes though we be, still do we gleam in the glory of thy splendid sun.
This quote, to me, addresses the issue of my place in the world and my place with relationship to the divine. I am a speck. I am a tiny being, but I am noble. And there's a paradox there that I love, and that I think is part of the mystery of our own creation.
A revelation the potency of which hath caused every tree to cry out what the burning bush had aforetime proclaimed unto Moses, who conversed with thee. A revelation that hath enabled every last pebble to resound again with thy praise, as the stones glorified thee in the days of Muhammad, thy friend.
I've always enjoyed the reference to the story in the Quran where we're told that if humans failed, and this is a terrible paraphrase, forgive me, and in fact, I might have it completely wrong, so someone can correct me. But the idea being that I've retained is that if humans failed to make mention of God, then the very stones of the earth themselves will rise up and glorify God and speak his name. And maybe that's why I like to paint rocks so much. I think maybe they're doing a better job of being obedient than we are. They're being very rock. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. And I like that.
The world is continually proclaiming these words. Beware, I am evanescent, and so are all my outward appearances and colors. Take ye heed of the changes and chances contrived within me, and be ye roused from your slumber.
A little word of warning that we are to not be too attached to this world. And anyone who tries to paint, anyone who observes nature, who tries to photograph, who tries to work with nature, understands the evanescence of its forms and colors and shapes and shadows. And there's a lesson there too.
Purge thy sight, therefore, from all earthly limitations, that thou mayest behold them all as the bearers of one name, the exponents of one cause, the manifestations of one self, and the revealers of one truth.
And this is part of that exhortation to not be attached to the worldly things, but to see with our spiritual eyes as well as our physical eyes, to see with our spiritual heart, not just to beat with the physical one.
I entreat thee by thy footsteps in this wilderness, and by the words, here am I, which thy chosen ones have uttered in this immensity, and by the breaths of thy revelation, and the gentle winds of the dawn of thy manifestation, to ordain that I may gaze on thy beauty, and observe whatsoever is in thy book.
This is a piece of a daily obligatory prayer that is one of the obligatory prayers we may choose to say as Baha'is. And again, it's a centering, it's a reminder of our place, of our position, and of our purpose. And again, it brings me back to how each of us is attracted to the divine in our own way. For me, the beauty of the world is one of the primary ways that I am drawn to the divine. And so I love that reference that I'm asking to be able to gaze on his beauty. And this is our final slide, and I have to thank my husband, Dick, for being my techie and for putting the presentation together and helping make it happen. But I want to leave you with a final thought. All of painting, to me, is metaphor, in the sense that it stands for something else. It may not stand for much. It may stand for, I liked this flower. You know, it may stand for what's the importance of a field of flowers. In that sense, I would ask you to consider that everything I've talked about tonight with regard to my painting could also be seen as a metaphor for my life, in that as I pursue my painting career, or as I pursue each individual painting, I am on a journey of exploration and search, and I'm on a journey to express what I have been given and to share it with others. In order to do that, I have to be somewhat open-hearted and open-minded and in a mode of learning. And if I can do that in my art, maybe that will give me practice to do it in my life, so that I can pursue my relationships with individuals, with my society, with people who are different than me, people who challenge me. Maybe I can bring that open-heartedness, that willingness to listen and learn to the rest of my life, as well as to just the creation of art. So in many ways, for me, art is a practice for my life, and is very useful on a very personal level that way. So with that, we will end our presentation, and I'm going to turn it back over to Tom to take it from there.
Oh, Colette, thank you so much. So beautiful.
We do have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Pat writes, if we've been given a gift as an artist, are we then responsible to share our vision, whether be it in movement, sound, words, sight, or touch?
Oh, Pat,
It's a great
that's
question.
an easy one. You lobbed it at me. Thank you, Pat. I think we absolutely are responsible for what has been given to us. If that is insight, if that is a sense of humor, which you may recall, I love yours. If it's some particular understanding, if it's a skill, if it's whatever it is, keeping it to oneself does no one any good. It doesn't grow or develop within you, nor does it enrich you or anyone else. But when it is shared, I think it does enrich everyone. And I'm gonna just say again, Pat is a marvelous painter. And among the things Pat does is she paints Russian religious icons. Not a small thing she shared with us. And thank you, Pat.
Dick and Colette, would you mind stop sharing, and then we could see
Oh,
each other's faces a little
Of
better?
course,
There we
that's
go.
better. Oh, that's better. There y'all are.
Thank you, thank you.
I get to see you all now. This is so cool. So
So
any other questions or comments?
I have tons of questions, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut for a while here.
Well, why don't you ask one to get prime the pump here?
All right. It's, well, as far as my understanding goes, there are ways to see clearly. And since you brought up the fact that seeing is such a kind of a fundamental skill of the artist, seeing clearly is a skill that one develops. And I know that Goethe once said that the removal of the ego for a short period of time always helps one see clearly. Does that correspond with how you approach seeing?
It's probably a little past my pay grade, actually. Goethe's, he's kind of up there. I think he has thought about these things in a way that maybe I haven't. My experience, which I think is shared by many others in any endeavor, it can be sports, it can be reading, it can be creating something. When you get in the flow, when you lose track of time, when you are so engaged that you aren't even thinking about yourself at all. You're using your mind, you're using your hands, so you're very engaged, you're very alive, but you're not thinking about you. you know, that the ego is, if not gone, it's at least off to the side, or it's quiet for a while. And my experience is that those are the blessed moments. And whether that helps me see clearly, yeah, probably does, because I find the ego has concerns that don't help my artwork.
Hmm.
The ego has concerns about things like comparing myself with others, comparing a painting with a previous one. Is it better? Is it worse? Is this painting worth the time I'm giving it? Those are, well, I'll give you an example. I had the pleasure of spending some quality time with my husband in Giverny. And we had the artist tickets, so we were there by ourselves. We had the water lily gardens to ourselves for a couple of hours. And we brought back hundreds of photographs. And for quite a few months, I did nothing with them except look at them, because, as I realized later, my ego was wrapped up in how I was going to paint Monet's water lily garden. Because I've seen so many people visit there and they come back with these dubiously painted versions of
That's
his
some nice ones.
water. And there are nice ones too, but I've seen a lot that are like, okay, you went to Giverny, that's nice. And I was just so afraid that's what my paintings of Giverny would look like. And so I didn't paint from these beautiful images that I had and from the attraction I felt. And when I finally realized it was just my ego that was stopping me, I just thought, oh, well, that's not very useful, Colette. So I said, just paint what you love. Just go do some paintings and they'll turn out. And if people look at them and go, oh, she went to Giverny, isn't that sweet? You know, then they say that, and I can't do anything about it. And I just had to let that go. So that's one example of where getting the ego out of the way helped me see clearly, helped me paint.
Mhm. That also puts you at odds with the art world in a sense, where the ego is put on a high platform, that that art in many cases is interpreted as an expression of the self, expression of the ego. So it makes it a little more difficult to be in the art world, I think.
Well, I wouldn't know what less difficult would be. You know, I'm wherever I am in the art world. You know, it's developed, and I can't really complain. I will say that throughout my education in art, that's what I thought art was about. I thought I had to have a bunch of stuff to say. I thought I had to have a skill that was better than others. And I knew I didn't, and I knew I didn't. So I didn't paint seriously till the flip side of 40. And part of the reason for that was I had this misunderstanding. But I will avow that it was reading these things and other quotes like it in the Baha'i writings that shifted my idea about what making art was about. And I remember reading these things and going, well, I can do that. You know, it doesn't have to be about me. How nice. And all of a sudden I thought, well, I can paint what I see or what I've been allowed to see and share that. And that way I didn't have to stand up there and say,
Yeah.
look at all these great paintings and look at how wonderful I am. It's like, oh my God, thank you. Don't need to do that.
Dave Miller has a question. Are some of these images digital manipulations of nature photographs?
No, they are all original paintings, generally rendered in watercolor with pastel over them. Though almost all of them are based on photographs that I've taken. So when you see them, kind of small on the computer screen, I can understand where they look a little more photographic than they do when you see them in their full size, like the size of the thing behind me. That would have a very different effect if you saw it small on a computer screen.
Mhm.
Good question, though.
Yeah. Anyone else before I ask another one?
I'll ask a question.
Go ahead.
You paint beautifully. I think the images that you've chosen to share along with the quotes from the writings of the Baha'i faith are well paired. And you're an artist, and you express from your heart. And I think the inspiration I take from your presentation is that is a quality of being that, whether I'm an artist or not an artist, I think I'm inspired to try to find ways to live that wholeheartedly as a result of seeing your images and hearing you speak about your process of kind of opening that. Because an artist, or author, anyone who creates something and puts it out in the world, there's a risk in that. It takes courage to put your heart out in the world in that way, because you're at risk of being criticized one way or the other. And is that not true for all of us, to live our truth and to come from our heart and to be out in the world in that way? And I just wonder if you have any comments about that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think that was what I was trying to address at the very end when I talked about the practice of my art almost being like practice for my life. The idea of, I brought up the idea of being open-minded, open-hearted, seeking, learning mode. You bring up the idea of responding genuinely and with the heart and with some passion and conviction and courage. So those are also pieces of the art practice and pieces of our life practice. I will share that it takes a little courage for me to share the Baha'i source of my inspiration for my art, because there are times in the art world where having a spiritual or a godly source for your work isn't very fashionable. Let's put it that way. But I feel safe here. I think David Lee had a question.
So many of your paintings are of nature, and I was just wondering, do you have some favorite places, and do you tend to paint within nature when you're in the presence of a beautiful scene, or do you find that you need the studio environment to kind of cultivate your skills that then reflect what you've seen?
Oh, what a nice question. Thank you, David. Yes, I have favorite places. Very near my home, there's a little park called Jacobus Park, and it is a ravine with a tumbling stream that works its way down to the Menominee River. And it's minutes from my house. And I've been going there for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, just as one example. When I go to New Mexico, I have a new favorite place because I just got to spend some time at Ghost Ranch. And that's a little shout out to a couple ladies who are here, who I met there. Just the beauty and the impressiveness of the place.
The palette.
And what?
And the palette.
Oh, and the palette. Yeah, the light and the colors and the skies and it's like it's a never-ending show, and it's never the same, and it's incredible. I will say, though, that I'm overwhelmed usually when I'm out in a given place. So I'm not a plein air painter. I have trouble focusing on the part I want to do. Now, Tom does plein air work, and Pat does plein air work. I know that. And then maybe there's, I don't know, Victoria, can you nod? Do you do plein air work? No, okay. Mimi, you do plein air work. Yes, okay. I admire that because you have to paint fast and you have to make really important decisions rather courageously. I like gathering source material, photographs, sketches, memories, notes, and then I'm a slow painter. I like the studio, and living in Wisconsin, I like the comfort of my studio.
Cool.
Colette, I loved your presentation
Thank
and
you,
the
Nina.
side-by-side quotations and those beautiful pictures. So I was wondering, do you have any plan to come up with a book to incorporate your paintings and some of the quotations? Because when I read those quotations, and then I didn't have much time to really reflect on the paintings. But I bet if I read those quotations and reflect on those paintings, I get more, even from quotations, because, you know, although I am not in your brain, I don't know how you came to that painting, but I can interpret it on my own, your painting. So I can enjoy it even more. So that is my first question. The second question is that for somebody who is not an artist, how can that person incorporate art into Baha'i activities like Ruhi classes? How can we do that if we don't have one cell in our bodies which can create any kind of art? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I might have a few, but I also know that the people who designed the study circles, what are you showing me? Oh, have some ideas, but even using puzzles, using images to inspire a prayer. I wouldn't necessarily say asking people to draw is necessarily going to be productive, but perhaps responding to some artwork, or as you say, perhaps interpreting it, or finding a quote and flipping through a beautiful National Geographic to find an image that speaks to you or that you think connects. This is something we could talk more about. And same thing with the book idea. I'm thinking, Mina, you have a great idea. You know, maybe you'd like to do something.
I think Pat had her finger up.
Hi,
Pat.
hi. I had another question. With our conversations up at Ghost Ranch, I was wondering if you might extend some of that about what we were talking about, co-creating with God. One of your quotes, to paraphrase, was creation is the way to understand God. And I would take it further. It's a dialogue with God. And as artists, that was the question I had asked earlier, is that our obligation, and not that we have a direct wavelength with God, but I think we might have a unique way of having that conversation. What do you think about that?
Number one, I think you really have thought about this more than I have, and you have actualized this more than I have. But one of the things that comes to my mind is that there are these many names of God, names and attributes, not only the blessed beauty, but the most powerful, the all-loving, the all-knowing, the beneficent. One of them is the fashioner. And there is a quote that I did not include tonight because there's many others, but it says that by the revelation of his name, the fashioner, God has enabled, and as you say, empowered humans to partake of that revelation. So for instance, if we say that we look at the attribute of God of the all-loving, and then we try to be loving, and we try to love in a God-like way, and we try to be a part of that. The same would be true of the Creator. We are partaking of the power of creation, very much in the sense that you and I talked about co-creating. I don't know that I use those words the same way, but I think we're talking about the same thing, where we are partaking in this attribute, and we're part of creation. Yeah.
Judy, you have a question.
I'll leave that.
Yes, I do. I really appreciate this, Colette. Your paintings are beautiful, and the quotes. I have a question. I was just wondering if, I don't think how you did some of these. It's, in some ways, it looks like you might have picked paintings and picked a quote to go with them. But I'm wondering if that was the case sometimes, or if there's sometimes you had a quote in mind and you either painted, you know what I'm saying. I'm asking here is, was the quote first or the painting? I just was kind of curious about that, because they were just so beautiful the way they go together,
Thank you. In all honesty, I could have put together 20 different slides. It was very hard for me to decide which images, because I've got hundreds. That's the truth. I've been painting, for 25 or more years. And so I have a lot of images. And I tried to pick things. So here and there, when I talked about prayer, I tried to pick images that were a little more abstract. When I spoke about the stones rising up, okay, so I picked some of my paintings that had stones in them. The quotes about every atom in existence, I tried to pick images that had stuff on the ground, little stuff that was, lying on the ground, that was, not big and grand. So yes, I tried to match. I picked a quote. I would say the quotes came first, because I wanted to hit those points. And then it was just a matter of, well, I've only got 20 or so minutes. Which few paintings do I think they'll want to see? And so that I just grabbed some.
Yeah, that's good. And I know you have a lot of quote or pictures, paintings that you can choose from. I guess I was wondering too, is if you've taken a quote before and decided, this is a quote that I would like to paint about. Have you done any of that?
You know what happens more often than that? I will be attracted to a scene or colors or an environment, and I start working on the painting. And as I'm working on the painting, it starts to show me what it's about more than even I understood. And there are times where quotes or concepts from the writing will pop into my head while I'm painting, but they weren't the original inspiration, but they show up kind of. Do you know what? I see Tom is nodding. I'm hoping that, yeah.
No, that makes sense.
It's like pre-conscious. It's probably going on in there, but I'm not cognizant of it until the colors and the forms. And I'm thinking, so do I want more contrast, or do I want to emphasize the shadow, or do I want to emphasize the softness? And in making those decisions, something that I believe or that's important to me will pop into my head, and I'll go, oh, I want to emphasize the shadow because, and then that belief. So it's during the process that things, sometimes stuff comes to me.
Thanks. That's great.
How are we doing? Do we have a lot of other questions waiting, or?
We're at 8 o'clock.
We're kind of winding to our time limit here. Anybody waiting that you see?
No, I don't. I had a lot of questions, but I can talk to Colette at that time.
Okay,
We'll have to search our data bank, see if we can find some pictures.
Well,
yeah.
Rennie Lee had a
Just
question.
Tom.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, someone
think
else. said
Rennie
something.
Rennie Lee had a question.
Rennie.
Yes, a kind of observation. I'd like to share an idea with you. You know, somebody mentioned, or Judy, I think, about creating a book, which I think is a great idea. I had an idea for a book one time, and I'm not an artist, so I don't think I could manage it myself. But I love the elevated language of Baha'u'llah, and there are some words that come up again and again, and it's elevated language, and I wonder about children reading some of those words and trying to understand what they mean. I mean, they're difficult for adults to know them entirely, and like a word like effulgence.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, if an artist could interpret that word, and there are other words, you know, that they're very visual, and I was thinking that would be a lovely project to work on. So just an idea.
Gee, Rennie. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking as a person who grew up in a Baha'i family, my vocabulary was utterly strengthened by reading the writings and hearing them being said as a child. So I would wholeheartedly agree with you. Shouldn't hold back with, with certain words with kids. I think they're willing to learn.
That certainly was our children's experience too. People very often commented about their vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I know it's from the writings. Good point, Rennie.
All right.
Thank you so much. Our time is drawing to a close. We hope that you'll reflect on what you've heard and continue to seek answers to your questions and track Colette down and pound on her door and ask her directly sometime. Excuse me. Our next talk in August is from Sid and Nancy Korn on August 27th. They'll be sharing a story about Yakutsk, a town in Russia. And then on September 10th, Caroline Juzenas is going to be speaking on a vision for humanity, the crucial role of people of African descent. Her presentation in particular is a continuation of a series of presentations that will then continue through October on topics related to what Baha'is view as America's most challenging issue, which is the elimination of racism. In the Baha'i faith, we are trying to bring people together and build relationships and find unity for social change and social action. We do this in small interactive study groups and in devotional gatherings, in children's classes and junior youth empowerment groups. And of course, we see lots of individual initiatives like these talks that are designed to enhance understanding and strengthen bonds. You are all invited at all times to participate with the Baha'is and with others in any of our activities. And feel free to contact me at the number there on your screen, or contact Patty Kubala if you'd like more information either about the faith or about what activities are going on in our area. And of course, if you'd like to dig more deeply into the Baha'i faith itself, you can find information about any aspect of the faith by going online to www.baha'i.org or ask a Baha'i. There are bound to be some near where you are. thank you all so very much for joining us tonight. And your participation and your questions and your sharing, they always make it better. So we hope to see you again next time. Thank you again. Thanks so much, Colette and Dick.
Good night. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Colette.
Nice, Tom.
Excellent presentation.
What year was that? Was that tea?
I
That was
don't remember.
Karen's high tea party. We played croquet.
Yeah, everyone had to wear white.
Yep. And hats and gloves. It was a different life,
Yeah, totally.
but we were cute. We
Yes.
didn't know how cute we were.
You were darlings.
Yeah, we were darlings. Okay, I'm gonna sign off.
All right. Take care, you guys.
All right, good night. Love y'all.
Love you.